I made a reference to ham-fisted, nostalgic soundtracks, right? While talking about the 90s. And, it got me thinking about nostalgia in general. And I think nostalgia gets a bad rap. I think it's become a four-letter word, and I don't think people are right. I don't think people are right in being so cruel and so angry about anything that is nostalgic. Because when you really think about it, nostalgia, it's a wonderful tool that the mind has. Your brain, your imagination has this wonderful way of when you see something that reminds you of the good old days, when you see something that reminds you of something you loved as a kid, it reminds you of the joy of that. It reminds you of the happiness you felt at that time. And when you think about it, the older you get, the more disillusioned in life you tend to become. I'm not trying to be cynical here or pessimistic, but the promise and excitement you have towards life as a kid slowly gets beaten out of you the older you get. Sorry, spoiler alert for those of you who are younger. I'm 35. I can tell you. Life has a way of letting you know, listen, it's not necessarily what you think it's going to be. So you got to make the most of what it is. But the more that happens, the more you kind of almost subconsciously long to revisit a simpler time, revisit a time before you had to pay rent, before you had to, before you had bills and mortgages and rent to pay and retirements to build towards and have kids to raise and partners to be with and, all this sort of stuff. Before we all got involved in all of that stuff, when we were just kids, taking in entertainment, playing, using our imagination, not having a care in the world, that's when life was undoubtedly better. So when a movie or a song or a TV show is able to transport you back to a time when you were happier, what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons you watch something. You watch a movie or you engage in any bit of entertainment because a part of you wants an escape and a part of you wants to feel good. Where you want to step out of your current trappings and be taken to some other place. So if a filmmaker employs a tool that helps you do that and it reminds you of a time when you were happier, that's not something to be upset about. Nostalgia is actually, it's a beautiful thing. It can be misused. It can be used to manipulate your emotions. And there are filmmakers and there are editors and there are studios out there who will play on your nostalgia and basically use that to gloss over the fact that the movie's not that good. But as long as, you're hitting all your pleasure zones and thinking about the past, you might not notice how flawed the movie is. So that is bad. When a filmmaker or a studio just injects nostalgia for the sake of trying to grease the wheels, kind of like what Joss Whedon did with Justice League, with bringing in Danny Elfman and the old Batman theme and the old Superman theme, that was all a way to try to disguise and mask what was going on with the movie. They didn't want you to, they felt like, what, as long as you're being reminded of all these things you used to love, like the old Superman movies and the old Batman movies and yada, 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 and the Hall of Justice and all that sort of stuff, as long as you're focusing on that, you might, not focus so much on Henry Cavill's upper lip or the fact that Steppenwolf's plot is completely one-dimensional now. And that, nostalgia was used almost cynically in Justice League. And that I do agree with, we should sort of decry that. But then, when you look at a movie like Ready Player One, and I went on a long Twitter thing about this last week, because people love to throw crap on them. People who've never seen it love to throw crap on that movie just based on the trailers, because they see, it's got, the Iron Giant and it's got Mortal Kombat characters and it's got Back to the Future. Oh, this looks like lazy filmmaking 101. Steven Spielberg is now just become such a lazy filmmaker and storyteller. And, that's like the big knock on that movie. But really, what's interesting is that the movie's not terribly nostalgic, because it doesn't actually include the Iron Giant. It doesn't actually include the real DeLorean from Back to the Future. it's commenting on people who are obsessed with nostalgia. It's commenting on people who only want to live in those positive memories because the real world has become so dark and so bleak that they'd rather put on, glasses and haptic suits to try to imagine they're anywhere else where they're happier than here. So that's what the movie's really about. And at the end, it wraps up with that. I'm not going to spoil it for those of you who maybe haven't seen it yet. But overall, the message that you're left with is it's important to disconnect. It's important to take the goggles off and be where your feet are and to build healthy relationships with those around you and to participate in making the world a better place as opposed to just running away from the world. That's what the movie's about. And yet you have these people who now, because nostalgia is this evil thing, they see some old characters in a trailer and they instantly write it off. And that's why, to me, Ready Player One is emblematic of how we've turned nostalgia into a four-letter word. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think nostalgia is a bad thing. Anything that can remind me of when things were better and easier, I'll take it. So just keep that in mind. Nostalgia is not a bad thing, okay? It is when they kind of throw a Nirvana song in the middle of a scene in Captain Marvel that has nothing to do with anything. But again, I don't know why I'm throwing so much trash at Captain Marvel lately. I don't know. The movie's just not. It's not aging so hot for me. I saw it opening night. It's only been what? It's been, I don't know, a week, almost 2 weeks. But I found the movie to be pretty flawed and pretty hollow, and it is what it is. But I digress. Guys, ease up on your hatred for nostalgia. It's not a bad thing, okay?